Haman Nature, a journey in search of a peaceful and prosperous society with human nature as a guide. Led by your host, Adam Haman.
Hello and welcome to Haman Nature. I am Adam Haman, and I'm joined by my spiky buddy Tyrone. How you doing, man?
一瓶啤酒，谢谢。
Yeah, I see you've got something fancy in Asian calligraphy. What is that there behind you?
Oh, that's
yeah, there it is.
that's my Japanese wall hanging. But what I just said there was actually Chinese. Adam, just goes to show your cultural bias. You can't tell a difference.
No, I'm very white and American.
But why am I greeting you in Chinese? Actually, what I said wasn't a greeting. And I'll leave it to the viewers to translate what I said in the comments.
Well, it's either something terribly insulting, or maybe Haman Nature is going to get a big payday and get co-opted by the Chinese Communist Party, which is what we're going to talk about today. I don't know how you feel about the Chinese Communist Party, but I don't like them.
Uh-oh.
I am a big fan of Chinese people and Chinese food and Chinese culture and Chinese movies. But the Chinese Communist Party, I don't like it at all. I mean, it's the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution and Tiananmen Square Massacre. And I mean, I just think they're sort of brutal and communist on top of that. And, you know, the Hong Kong oppression. I'm mad at them, but the thing that makes me really, 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 really mad is that they're screwing up my movies. And I wrote a little article about it last month, plugging a video called Hollywood Takeover, which is just sort of explains the horror, the way Hollywood, the movie companies are just whoring themselves out to get access to the Chinese market. And it's gross, and I thought we should talk about it.
Yeah, before we dive into that, Adam, into your article and that related video, I just have a question. I guess you can't get canceled twice, right? So we got nothing to lose this episode, because I'm pretty sure the one we just did on the Middle East situation definitely got us canceled. So I think we're just doing this for fun now. So
I actually got some feedback from some Jewish people who were reflexively pro-Israel, and they thought we did a decent job covering the issue. So, yay for us.
Right. So, movies and the great China Hollywood takeover. Oh, you make it sound so spooky, Adam.
Although if you do it in the accent, it also gets hilarious.
Okay, we're not going there, folks.
We did. Yeah, before we play the video, I mean, there's other horrible things they do. There's the oppression of those Muslim Uyghurs and whatever they're doing to the Falun Gong religious practitioners. I mean, do you have any insight or opinion on the stories that they're just using all these people as incubators for organ harvesting? Or, I mean, we've heard a lot of reports of that, and it just seems so insane. I don't know if it's true or not.
The quote unquote conspiracy theory that I've been diving into recently is there's been a series of videos floating around, YouTube and the interwebs about the missing population in China. Very, very interesting, and part of me finds it extremely hard to believe. But there do seem to be some credible on the ground sources saying that maybe China's population is not as big as they claim it to be. And then of course you hear these other conspiracies like the organ harvesting, and I just watched this one video online about women just being grabbed off the street, like caught on surveillance cameras, and supposedly being taken to being put into forced marriages or trafficked elsewhere. There's some theory out there that because of that one child policy, There's a shortage of women, and so
Mm-hmm.
like the poor areas of China, women are being kidnapped and being forced to marry richer men in different parts of China. And then, of course, there's sex trafficking thing, and then I don't know, things like leaking out of Wuhan, and as you said, you hear about the organ harvesting. What is definitely, I think, been proven true is what you and I would think we would rightfully call slave labor,
Mm.
using like the Uyghur population and other criminals to work factories and produce the goods that we have. And even though you know I want to phrase this very carefully. As capitalists, we're okay with quote unquote slave wages or whatever you want to call it. Like, factory workers in poor developing countries not earning a lot of money, because that's sort of the first stepping stone to building a wealthier society. Every society's got to kind of start out that way, right? And from our perspective, being rich in America, we see these conditions and we think, oh, that's horrible and horrific. But really, the alternative for them is starvation or working for ultra low wages, what we would consider to be criminal here. But really, that's just how developing nations go through. But I get the sense China's different, that they are suppressing wages. Um, they're not allowing their people to reap the rewards of all these companies making money, that a lot of it's just going straight to the government, right? They're controlling all the industry and everything like that. So it's not a free market per se. It's not as though they're poor people just trying to better their lives with some crappy low paying job. I really feel like the Chinese government is kind of forcing that situation. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course. You're absolutely right. If this was, you'd expect, as to the extent that China is a developing nation, I know they've come a long way, but to that extent, you'd expect labor to be cheaper there because their next best option is something worse than a low paying job. But it's called the Chinese Communist Party. And to the extent that they're following their doctrine, the state owns the citizenry and their labor and allocates it as they see fit. And you would expect it just to be tyrannical and awful, just as it's been practiced anywhere.
Right.
So yeah, obviously, I don't have any compunction calling what's going on over there slave labor, even though there are obviously some sort of markets operating. There's the heavy hand of the Communist Party of China all over everything. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, I'm sure they're doing something to when they're not stealing kidneys out of people's bodies, they're pressing them into service that they probably don't appreciate.
Right, right. So all we see on TV and the movies, and we'll get into this a little bit, are the fancy cities and the
Yeah.
skyscrapers and the neon signs, and what you're not seeing is the oppressing poverty. I'm not really sure a middle class exists
Did you
exactly.
see the Beijing Olympics in, what was it? I want to say
The
2014.
one with the bird nest
Yeah,
stadium.
yeah.
Yeah.
On the one hand, it was sort of an amazing
Oh, that opening
achievement. The
ceremony
opening
was
ceremony was amazing, and
mind blowing. But then
yes,
you got to remember, like, what went behind that?
right. I mean, we just said slave labor, so seeing all these people moving in unison in an amazing coordinated way with special effects and fire was really, really impressive. But as we're watching that and getting slightly terrified, you also see the shots of Beijing where you can't see 100 yards down the road because the smog is so awful there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always the leftists and the greenies always blame capitalism and commerce and the industrial revolution for environmental damage. But boy, if you want to destroy the environment, just bring a communist government along. And
Yeah, and what you don't see is just that crushing disparity between
yeah,
the rich and the poor in China, because obviously the government is
yeah,
forcing low wage or slave wage labor, and propping up a small group of upper middle to upper class citizens. The secret weapon that China has always had is its population.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tie it back to the first kind of conspiracy thing I mentioned, is that I've always felt that the Chinese Communist Party obviously doesn't care about the people. They care about ideology or whatever you want. They're driving towards some sort of future, and if you have to break 1,000 eggs or grind whatever grist in the mill is required to get there, that's morally justified on their part. So to them, I think they're completely willing to just sacrifice, and I mean literally sacrifice 100 million people to that end. And so now, to me, and I've been saying that for years, just as my own sort of pet theory, like they don't care if 100 million people there's died. They got 1.4 billion, and they're just cogs and wheels that are replaceable to them to get to an end. So now I'm thinking to myself, well, if they've been doing that for 10, 20 years, maybe their population isn't as big as reported, because they are just grinding these people literally to dust.
Yeah, the grist in the mill is people in China. Just because you mentioned the population, a thought sparked. Nationalists here in America and mercantilist types get freaked out because we are no longer the number one manufacturing country on the planet. It's China. We're number 2. But it's not by all that much, especially not when you consider the fact that they have over 4 times the number of people in that country than we have. We're far more productive with our entrepreneurial ways and what's left of our free market system and our capital. It's just that when you start to embrace a little bit of free markets and enact government policies to invite manufacturing over, and you have 1.4 billion people, you can produce a lot. So Americans shouldn't freak out. But all these things are really beside the point, Tyrone, because the Chinese Communist Party is screwing up my movies, and I think that's what we need to talk about.
Adam can't have that, folks.
I can't have that.
He's a big movie buff, as you know. We've done several shows just on movies.
Don't be taking patches off of Maverick's bomber jacket. I can't have that. All right, so in this article I wrote, which we'll link to in the show notes, people, at hamannature.com, and also on the YouTube channel.
By the way, no amount of patches on a jacket was going to save that train wreck of a movie, or should I say plane crash of a movie.
Which one? The second one?
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it, man.
I thought Maverick was so bad.
We're gonna have to get it. We're gonna have to get into this. All right. Yeah. So you'll find the show notes there, and in that article, I linked to this, or I referenced heavily this little documentary called what's it called? Hollywood Takeover. Yeah, that's it. And we're gonna play. I'd love to play the whole thing. It's really fascinating. But we've selected out 3 clips that sort of give you the flavor of what's going on between our movie industry and this communist government, which appears to have a chokehold on it because we're greedy idiots, apparently. So we're going to play these 3 clips. They're pretty short, and then we'll talk about it. You ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Roger Ebert said that a motion picture is an empathy-generating machine. It is the culmination of thousands of years of artists and artistry coming together to tell a single story. There's really, really nothing like it.
And as a medium, it's really powerful. It has the ability to leave us feeling hopeful or despairing about the world. It also has the ability to shape society.
They were the art form of the 20th century. They were the way we saw the world. Hollywood, they made a lot of very pro-American movies. And in fact, Hollywood invented America to the world in the old days.
But for some, that power isn't used for good.
Marvel's Doctor Strange accused of whitewashing to appease China.
In the original book, the zombie virus originates with a poor peasant boy in the rural countryside of China. It spreads through a black market organ trade. This whole plot line was surgically removed from the final script of the movie.
The new Barbie movie featuring a map of the South China Sea that shows China's ownership of disputed islands.
This is really designed for the eyes of the Chinese censors, and they're trying to kiss up to the Chinese Communist Party. I believe that most of us, a large majority of us, got involved with China because of the opportunities and the fact that those opportunities also had a bigger calling, which was creating sort of this dynamic between the US and China that was going to allow us to spread the aspirational quality of democracy into a communist country, maybe someday changing them over to a democracy like ours. But over time, all of us have been punched in the nose.
How far back does this go? When did this Hollywood-China relationship start? Why did it start? Is it really just about money? Are there other parts at stake?
All acts of genocide seek to remove from a community their stories. The very first thing.
It's been more than a decade we have not had a major studio put a movie into production with China as the villain.
It's so scary that they're able to pressure people to change their behavior from afar without no bullets. This is just money.
It's incredible to me to watch the power that they have.
They don't do this, of course, through direct control. They do it through their enormous economic leverage and the fear from studios on missing out on a market of 1.4 billion people.
What's at stake? The soul of the nation is at stake. Therefore, everything.
China's control in the film industry.
Yeah. We're about to play the second clip. But one of the main featuring people in this documentary that you just saw is a guy who literally worked in a company as a fixer. And what was being fixed was the scripts in Hollywood to make sure that they comport with the desires of the Chinese Communist Party. It's pretty gross, and you'll see a little bit more about that company and what they do in this next clip starting now.
When such an influential cultural institution is taking its cues from the Chinese regime, which doesn't have our best interests in mind. How far back does this go, right? It's like, when did this Hollywood-China relationship start? Why did it start? Is it really just about money? Are there other parts at stake? Is it about cultural exchange? What really were the decisions that started this whole partnership?
DMG is celebrating its 19th year in operation. I've been working with the company since 1999. We're the #1 media buyer in China. We're constantly growing, so I will throw out there that we are consistently looking for MBAs that graduate with Mandarin language speaking skills. So if anybody wants to shoot me their resume, feel free. We can't hire fast enough. Well, it's interesting because as we were starting that process, Joe Biden, who was the vice president at the time, sat down with Xi Jinping. They created a new movie sort of structure of how Hollywood was going to get access to that market. They actually raised the amount of movies from 20 to I think it was 32. And then on top of it, they raised the amount of box office that the studios get from China from 13.7% to 25%. These two future leaders of the two superpowers take such a vested interest in Hollywood. Before we got involved with Marvel, their largest hit was Iron Man 2 at the time. That made $20 million in the box office. When we made Iron Man 3 and got it into that box office a few years later, Iron Man 3 made $20 million just in its opening day, and it went on to make $125 million in that market. If you look to the last film that Marvel got in, which was the latest Avengers movie in, I believe, 2018, that film made $750 million just in the China market. So if you look at that crescendo, that exponential raise of where revenues and profits were going, everybody knew that that's what it was going to be someday. So if you could get access to the market early and continue to grow upon that, the world was limitless when it came to that market, and that's what everybody was chasing. It started in 1997 with Red Corner, Kundun, and 7 Years in Tibet.
The Red Corner is a 1997 film that Richard Gere starred in, and he plays a character, an entertainment lawyer called Jack Moore. And his job is to go to Beijing and try and broker this satellite deal. And while he's there, he gets basically framed and suspected of committing a murder. And so he gets a state-appointed lawyer who tells him you should just plead guilty or else you could basically be executed.
And unlike in your country, Mr. Moore, sentences are carried out within a week. You will be shot, and the cost of the bullet will be billed to your family.
China's Ministry of Radio, Film, and Television, which is one of the government apparatuses, was telling them, no cooperation between any of the studios that were behind this movie. China didn't want to work with them. There's a lot of money involved, just cut them off. So that also really impacted Richard Gere's career in Hollywood.
Scorsese had this film in the mid-90s. It was on the Dalai Lama.
Come back to lead us.
And they basically shelved the film. It was a Scorsese film, and the studio basically tripped it and pushed it in the corner and tried to pretend it never happened.
Religion is poison. We accept no conditions from the Chinese.
You can't even watch it on DirecTV. You can't download it. It's not on Netflix. It's not Amazon. They tried to do the same thing with 7 Years in Tibet.
"7 Years in Tibet" is actually based on a true story about the young Dalai Lama.
May they be joyfully reunited with their relatives.
This was when he's super young. It's a story about him and an Austrian mountaineer back in the day. So a French director heard this story and was like, wow, it's incredible. I want to make a movie out of it. And so he did. And it starred Brad Pitt and all this. And so this also came out in 1997. But after it came out, the Chinese Communist Party was really unhappy with it. They're like, you made our military officers look really brutal, and you portrayed the Dalai Lama in too much of a positive light, because the Chinese Communist Party had taken over Tibet in the 1950s. So they're quite sensitive about how that's portrayed. So they banned basically everyone involved. Sony Studios wasn't allowed to operate in China for decades. And Brad Pitt, who was also quite young at the time in that movie, wasn't allowed back into China till 2014 and 2016. So that's like how long the repercussions were, just for, trying to do something that was based on a true story.
Yeah, money, money, money. It's all about the money. And can you believe they were so greedy and corrupt that they 86'd a Scorsese film because the CCP told them to.
Yeah, that is nuts. That first, or one of the movies they highlighted with Richard Gere, right? The
Red Corner, yeah.
Right? So in that movie, he goes to China and gets accused of committing a murder. Did you know that in the original script, though, and this is how much they manipulate these scripts. In the original script, it wasn't murder. He was accused of smuggling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was a hamster smuggler.
I can't believe I followed you that far down that road. Gerbil smuggling. But in all seriousness, it's amazing that all those movies came out in 97, and 97 was also the year that Titanic came out. And the leadership in China really was impressed by Titanic. They started realizing what an incredible propaganda force movies coming out of Hollywood are. And then when they get hit by these three movies that have a anti-China bent to them, I think it's uncontrovertible. That's when they decided to really exert their economic pressure and start changing scripts over here in really disgusting ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's aware that China has quite the influence. Like you mentioned, the patches on Tom Cruise's jacket had to be removed because it had one for Japan and one for Taiwan, and the Chinese didn't like that. They edit things out of movies or scripts just to appeal to the Chinese market. They'll hire like famous Chinese actors to be in the movie, right?
Right, and just throw them in where it just
throw them
seems
in,
weird.
make up characters, even if it doesn't make any sense. Whatever, right?
Like this, with the Maverick one, at least Hollywood didn't completely bend. In the American version, those patches are still there. They just stripped them out in the one that went to China.
Mm-hmm.
And in Iron Man 3, they added a 4 or 5 minute sequence with some Chinese surgeon saves Tony Stark's life with some amazing communist technology or something like that, just to make the Chinese system look good, to pass the censors. It's
what I wanted to say was, I think everybody's aware that the Chinese market influences Hollywood. I don't think that's a surprise. I think if people do watch this film, you'll definitely learn some things you didn't know about and didn't realize maybe how far back it went and how deep the roots go. But so all of that's interesting. Maybe not completely shocking. Again, I think China has a lot to do with business and everything like that. But you seem to be like, would you say you're more upset about this versus, say, how they meddle in the affairs of like Apple or other companies that produce and sell goods over there? For some reason, this is emotionally more upsetting to you than what they do in other sectors.
You're messing with my movies, man. I mean, ultimately, I'm not that upset with the Chinese Communist Party. They are what they are. I'm upset with American companies that whore themselves out.
Okay.
I'm also upset with, like when it comes to manufacturing, our government pushed all these jobs overseas. This is an effect of minimum wage laws and massive regulations and red tape that make making things here difficult. It raises the cost of labor. That's the real reason we ship jobs overseas, or at least a huge component of it. So I blame the government, and then I blame the greed of these corporations, especially Hollywood.
Yeah, so really, this is a governmental problem, right? Because if we were just going to take this from a libertarian, cold, rational, no emotional perspective, we would just say a private company can do whatever it wants, and if it wants to make a movie that appeals to a certain audience, well, isn't that what they do? I mean, you write a sci-fi movie for a sci-fi audience. You write a romantic movie for a audience that likes romantic movies, and you write a pro-Chinese Communist Party movie for people who like the Chinese Communist Party, I guess. So you could just say they're just reacting to market forces, except of course these really aren't true market forces, right? This is pure government intervention distorting what we think would be a different outcome in a free market.
I mean, if this thing was happening in a free market, I'm a libertarian. That affects what I think the law should be, the legal structure. But I would still complain bitterly that these Hollywood studios are whoring themselves out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in Doctor Strange lore, in the Marvel franchise, his teacher, the Ancient One, is a Tibetan monk.
Right.
But first of all, they made this character a chick, Tilda Swinton. That's fine.
Right.
She did a great job. But they also made her a Celtic druid rather than a Tibetan monk, because China doesn't want to hear about Tibet.
Right. Well, weren't they like some weird space alien type people? Like
they got weird to try and make. Yeah, they got weird. But whatever.
They're still dressed in like robes and kind of looked very Tibetan monkish. If you ask
they really
me.
did. Yeah, I don't think the Celtics dressed like that. And then I give some examples in the article, but like in Looper, that time travel movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis, they play the same character, one old, one young, and they're assassins basically for some criminal organization that goes back in time and does this and that. Well, Joseph Gordon-Levitt was talking to an old grizzled vet of this industry about his retirement plans, and he wants to retire in France and marry his girl. And to get past the CCP, to get into the Chinese market, they were forced to add a scene with what's his name, Jeff
Bridges, right?
No,
not Jeff
Bridges,
Daniels.
Jeff Daniels. Yeah. He plays the grizzled vet of the system. They had to insert a scene where this guy tries to talk him out. He says, "I've been from the future. You should really consider retiring in China."
Right.
Like, no, I want to retire in France. Dude, I'm from the future, I'm telling you. And that's all to appease this vain, controlling, authoritarian regime who just wants moviegoers in America and China to think that in the future it's China that's the best place on earth you want to live. How and we roll over for that? For that we roll over?
Yeah, I will say it is a really good scene and a really good line.
It is. It's funny. It works, but it also strikes you as weird. Like, what? China? Where did that come from?
Was it you and me talking about this? Sorry, folks, to derail this a minute. But I really love the movie Looper. I can't remember who I was talking to saying that's garbage. It might have been my sister, actually. Now that I think about it. I really liked Looper. I know people.
I did too.
I know it was a bomb, kind of, and people didn't generally like it, but I don't know. I thought it was a clever take on time travel movies.
I agree.
Which usually just tick me off. Okay.
And one of the other things that it was Mission Impossible 2 or 3, I think, or Tom Cruise is running through Shanghai, the rooftops, and as is the case, there's a bunch of laundry drying lines,
lower income.
Lower income place, and he's running from whoever he's running from, and the Chinese Communist Party makes him take that out or edit out the clotheslines because it gives the impression that anyone in any neighborhood in Shanghai could be poor enough that they don't have dryers, and we can't have that.
Okay, I would like to reveal a new conspiracy theory that I've been working on related to this.
Sweet, lay it on me.
And for me, my conspiracy theories are all just sort of a priori deductive. You just take some information or actually, it's more inductive for me. I tend to try to work backwards and think how can this possibly be? Is there another explanation? So we've established it's all about the money, right? But we've also established that the Chinese Communist Party are purposefully this is an initiative of theirs, right? This cultural coercion, if you will, and they recognize, like you said, they saw Titanic and like, we can make movies influence how they're presented to the whole world. So it's a very strategic move on their part. Now, I lived in Japan for a couple of years, and I will say that foreign markets do love American movies, and they they will go to the box office, but it's not as if they don't have other movies to make. It's not as if the American movies perform all that well compared to their domestic movies or all the other foreign films there are. And so what I'm getting at is where does the money come from? So I think everybody is just assuming that you've got 1.4 billion people. Do you? and if they all go spend $10 for a ticket, man, that is just heaps of money. Ready there for the pickings. Except, as we talked about before, I think most of China is under the poverty rate. So who's going to the movies and buying tickets, number one? And number two, why do they limit the number of movies in? Why do they only allow 34 movies a year in, foreign films a year in?
And they limit the number of theaters too. It's weird. I don't know why they would do that either.
And we all know how honest and transparent the Chinese are with reporting numbers and statistics. Here's my theory. I don't think anybody's watching these movies. I think China is just writing the checks. I think they are just doing it out of their own government coffers as part of this initiative to influence culture. I don't think there are any Chinese people going. There's no middle class in China. Who's going to the movies?
You heard it here first, folks. Tyrone the Porcupine Hobo doesn't think there are Chinese people.
I think the Chinese government is just quote unquote buying all the tickets. And so they limit the number of films, and because that would become a pretty spendy price tag if all thousands of movies came in, right? So they limit it to just a few. It caps their budget at a few $30 billion or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know. It's
certainly
my
wouldn't.
conspiracy theory. Somebody
won't-
out there's got to know something. Hit me up with it.
Yeah, I won't throw that theory in the dumpster exactly. I'll put a pin in it. But working against that theory is that 1.4 billion is a huge number. And in a huge communist regime, you're going to have a very large administrative state, and all those people are getting paid.
Sure.
Their version of the Politburo, whatever. It's going to be enormous. Between that, these people are well paid and they could go see a movie. And also the free market reforms. There are a lot of companies in China. They make things. They must pay those workers something. I'm gonna lean in the direction that these are real people, but it wouldn't surprise me if the numbers were subsidized and fudged by the central government there.
Maybe the Chinese government gives everybody 5 free tickets a year to go see a movie. I mean, right? I mean, I don't know. Does anybody really know? Has anybody been to China, seen people line up for these movies in the movie theaters?
It can hardly be a worker's paradise if the government doesn't give you at least 5 free tickets.
All right. Maybe I'll work on that one.
Before we wrap up, I'm not done calling American businesses whores.
All right.
Because I want to bring up the NBA.
Oh.
Do you remember a little incident in 2019
Sure.
when the Hong Kong folks were a little bit upset with being ruled over by a Chinese Communist Party, and they were revolting in the streets, and there were violent crackdowns and oppressions? I don't know how you felt about it, but I was on the side of the Hong Kongers as versus the Chinese Communist Party. Do you share my feelings?
I think I do.
Yeah, a lot of people did, including Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Morey, who sent out a tweet supportive of the Hong Kong protesters. And the NBA did not like that one bit. They what he tweeted was like a picture. It said, "Fight for freedom, stand with Hong Kong." And then immediately the NBA just said, no, stop. That tweet is regrettable and, quote, deeply offended many of our friends and fans in China. And I'm going to call LeBron James a whore too, because he's not in the room here with me, because he didn't want to lose his $1 billion Nike deal. So he threw Morley under the bus too. And he said something hilarious. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, he called this guy, the general manager, misinformed, and suggested he should have considered the consequences of his statement. So again, it's just all money. I don't care what that government is doing to those people, and I don't care what you feel about it. You just shut the hell up and make sure I get my check.
Well,
and I think that's disgusting.
It's completely disgusting. And we now know that the only thing that's going to get LeBron James to step away from a P. Diddy party is threatening his shoe deal. So, I mean, that's calling the kettle, Yeah, he's not a very, very morally upstanding person, I don't think. But, yeah, it is disgusting how people just get blinded by money. And, I mean, I don't want to stand here and say I'm so virtuous that I could resist it, because I've never seen that kind of money in my life.
I hear you.
So I mean, I don't know what I would do. It's a tough thing. Which is why that scene in The Fountainhead with Howard Rourke, when he's offered that big check to change the design of his plans, the design of the building he's working on, and Ayn Rand purposely, she talks about this later, she says, I made him stop and think about it.
Knowing
for a second, he paused.
Knowing that saying no means he's going to have to go work in that quarry for a while and break his back.
I remember reading that book and just pausing that section, terrified.
Yeah,
what was going to be the choice either way, right? Oh man, so
I want to.
It's tough. It's tough to resist that money, and when the government just has a literal printing press, how do you resist?
Yeah, I want to throw the whores a bone, so to speak. If you watch that Hollywood Takeover movie, you'll see them talk about when this whole relationship started out between Hollywood and massaging scripts for the government. Yes, it was about gaining access to this market and making a bunch of money, but they also told themselves that, hey, we're going to work with them and our capitalism is going to rub off on them. There's going to be cultural exchange. And hey, we're maybe by doing this, we're going to make them a free market democracy.
Right.
So it just goes to show nobody thinks they're the villain when they're doing villainous things. They'll talk themselves into a narrative by which not only are they making themselves rich, hey, they're making the world a better place.
And gosh, this really, I think, is a problem with Western culture. Just the pure arrogance of it. Just that, and really, it goes all the way back to the colonial, times of, let's say 1400s, 1300 periods, where they're like, we're going to bring our culture to the rest of the world by force, god darn it, because we're superior and, we'll make the world better. So yeah, we'll bring democracy to China and we'll bring peace to the Middle East. And it's like, stop.
We're going to civilize those savages and bring them Christianity too.
Just stop, please. Let people be what they want to be and have their own cultures. Just stop interfering. Sorry.
Well, I have good news. I mean, if you're worried about America being number one and you via hubris and greed throwing its weight around, I have really good news, and we're not going to be able to do that anymore. You notice we got a new pope, right?
Yes.
Have we talked about this?
No, you and I haven't.
So for years and years and years, this is the first American pope.
Right.
And the reason given why, for a whole huge amount of years, they were always Italians, because where is Vatican City?
Mm-hmm.
And then they got away from that, but never, ever, ever did they choose an American pope. And the stated reason was that America is this, the biggest, most powerful country on earth, and it would just be poor showing to also have an American pope. It's too much.
I see.
So we finally got an American pope. Does that mean that this is a civilization in decline?
Got it.
We're over 36 trillion in debt. Maybe we are. Maybe our empire's back is broken too. So we can finally get a pope. That's the good news. The bad news is why.
Yay!
Yay! Don't you feel better, Tyrone? There's an American pope.
I'm ripping that patch off right now.
All right. Well, this was fun. Do you have any more vile words for the whores in Hollywood, or should we wrap it up?
It's another good topic, and really, I think from our perspective, it just shows, something I've said many times in the show. My sort of mantra is corrupt money, corrupt soul.
Yeah.
Right? And government money is corrupt, and it corrupts everything it touches. And I really think that's the problem. It's government. So
yeah. Before we wrap, I just want to reiterate, Martin Scorcese is a hero in the movie business. And that movie, Kundun, was nominated for several Academy Awards before they just tanked it. And it was good. But it showed the Chinese government brutally cracking down on Tibet. It's a story about the Dalai Lama and Tibet and what China did to them in the 50s. And not only did they agree to just tank the movie, it barely got a release, but the CEO of, I think it was Disney, whoever it was, he went over there to just kiss the butt of the Chinese Communist Party premier dude, the leader.
Okay.
And he said something to the effect of, the bad news is that the movie was made, but the good news is that nobody saw it. A Martin Scorsese film. These people are literal whores, and I am disgusted by it. I don't think there should be a law against it. I don't think anybody's going to go to jail, but my libertarianism does not prevent me from being angry and criticizing companies who are screwing up good movies because they're just greedy and corrupt. To hell with them.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching or listening to Haman Nature. Check out the show notes on the YouTube page under the video, and also go to hamannature.com or hamannature.substack.com. That's HAMAN. To catch the show notes and the links to all the things we've been talking about today. And also, I write articles there. So subscribe. You will be happy. And we'll catch you next time on Haman Nature.